Governor Newscomb, isn't that his name, Newscomb?
This is the beginning of what's going to happen here. When you violate people's due process, when you pull people off the street, you start dragging them and hurting them and not abiding by the Constitution, when you start doing all of that, people get upset and angry. And if you remember what the Civil Rights Movement was about, the Civil Rights Movement was about these very kinds of protests. And for some reason, in our modern era, people think that in order to have protests, you got to be, cordoned off to a certain area and, what time you can protest. There's nothing in the Constitution that tells you what time you can protest. You can protest at any time. That's the whole point of it, is to disrupt, it's to make uncomfortable. And that's what they're doing. And that's what I believe when I say everyone has to be willing to sacrifice something. You have to make people uncomfortable in these times. If you see how uncomfortably and how harsh people are being treated on the streets, you have to be willing to go into places and disrupt and make people uncomfortable.
Well, thank goodness we have Don Lemon to make clear what's going on here. As he says, this is just the beginning, so plan on more of the same from the left.
They're not going to stop. This is a movement, I'm telling you.
And he reminds us of the Civil Rights Movement, which I think is actually interesting because the Civil Rights Movement, well, it was the result of Democrat policies, right? You had slavery, you had the Ku Klux Klan, Jim Crow, because of the Democrats. So they create the mess, and then you need a movement to solve the mess.
It's less than ideal.
So this is no different. The Democrats opened our borders, invited illegal aliens to flood the country. Now that they're here, they have to be removed. And it's a large-scale operation. They created the problem that is now being solved. And leftists like Don Lemon are always talking about the Constitution. They don't care about the Constitution. You don't hear them arguing for Second Amendment rights. You didn't hear them arguing that it was a problem when the government was engaged in censorship of social media platforms during the COVID-19 scamdemic.
We follow the science.
And many on the left are celebrating this so-called protest, this disruption of a church service, which is illegal. I wonder how they would feel if this protest, this disruption, were to have taken place in a mosque. Maybe we'll find out at some point. But I highly doubt they would have been as accepting of such a protest. Now, in their warped minds, I'm sure they somehow justified this disruption to themselves because the pastor of this church supposedly is the head of the local ICE division.
I think that's unforgivable.
But one has nothing to do with the other. You have families attending this church service when all of a sudden these crazoids storm the place and start creating a disturbance. That is not a peaceful protest. Sorry, Don.
As you may have heard yesterday, CNN parted ways with anchor Don Lemon.
We wish him the best.
Nikki Haley isn't in her prime. Sorry. A woman is considered to be in her prime in her 20s and 30s and maybe 40s.
What are you talking? Wait.
Bruh.